What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So we are here at the Survivor Season 48 finale. We are going into the finale with 5 players remaining. We have Camilla, we have Kyle, we have Eva, we have Joe, and we have Mitch. Now, if you watch my preview for this finale, I said that I would be pulling for Camilla in this episode and kind of laid out how I thought her path could get there, as well as Kyle's. Those are kind of the two that are at the top of my list. You know, right now, I know the majority seems like would be surprised if Joe doesn't win this game going into the finale, but that's kind of where I was thinking at, and I've loved Kyle and Camilla's kind of secret alliance, even though a few people have, you know, kind of been suspicious of them. Throughout the season, I kind of have loved how it's been kind of behind the scenes and whatnot. But as I said, I do love all 5 players that we have here left in the game and was really interested to see how this finale went. So before we do jump in to this finale episode recap, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We have more Survivor content on the channel. We recap every single Survivor episode here on Thursday mornings after the episode on Wednesday nights. We are also going to have some more Survivor content here in the next week or so. I'm going to rank all of the post-season 40, so all of the new era seasons, and then some other Survivor videos as we move throughout the summer, as well as we move towards Survivor Season 49 coming this fall, as well as we will have the cast reveal coming up next Wednesday for Survivor Season 50, which is about to start filming, or might have already started filming, but should start filming in the next couple of days, if not, I believe. So we'll have more Survivor content on the channel, so just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So we're back at camp, and, you know, thank Fest congratulating everyone for making the final 5. And for them believing Kyle about Shaheen, that he was trying to get Joe out, and Eva says, you know, thanks for having my back. Kyle feels like now that with that move, he feels like he has all the options to get to the final 3. Joe is suspicious of if maybe they got played, but Eva doesn't believe so. Kyle and Camilla can't believe their crazy story worked, and they did it again, working behind the scenes, as we've said, as they've done throughout this season. The next morning, the final 5 sit, pondering at the water, watching the sunset and what these final days have ahead of them. And the group walks to find tree mail. There are little podiums with their names on it with puzzle locks. An advantage is up for grabs. There's symbols around camp and their clues to unlock the puzzle lock for a key and an advantage in the immunity challenge. Everyone sprints off to start trying to find the clues. There's something new on the symbols. Dots that more than likely could be representing letters of the alphabet. Some people are helping each other, and people are actually helping Kyle. Kyle asks Mitch for a question. He helps him. Eva is helping Kyle as well. So kind of surprising, especially at this point in the game, still kind of helping each other here. Eva gets it. The word was secure, gets the advantage in the second to last immunity challenge. And speaking of that second to last immunity challenge, we're going to jump right into that. So the first immunity challenge of the night, guaranteed spot in the final 4, and then cannot be voted out in this game. Also, the winner is going to the sanctuary for pasta and chocolate cake, so fueling you up for the final immunity challenge of this game. And Joe is on the cusp of history as well, looking for his 5th challenge win. Eva doesn't have to toss the ball in to reveal the numbers in kind of the third portion of this challenge, and we saw it play an advantage in the challenge itself. She was kind of behind at first in the beginning stage of the challenge. She was able to use that to her advantage and then was able to catch up and was right in it at the end. And a very entertaining challenge, as it seemed like it was going to kind of be a blowaway at the end. Camilla was in dead last the whole challenge till the puzzle. She comes all the way back and wins, secures a spot in the final 4, cannot be voted out of this game, also earns reward. She chooses Eva to come with her as well. Back at camp, Kyle, Joe, and Mitch, they all have some fun with how muddy and dirty they are. They're like, if I never see mud again, I'm completely fine with that. And Mitch says that him and Kyle and Camilla are on the right side of the numbers to take out Joe. Will they make a move? We'll see. Joe asks if Kyle thinks anything will go down. Kyle says no. Kyle says that both are big threats. Joe could get a lot of votes, and Mitch, you know, has no blood on his hands. I mean, really, and you know, you kind of look at it from the outside, like, I understand that's a valid reason, but you're looking at Joe, and at least from the outside, which I get outside, we have a different view. It's like, how can you not take the shot at how can you not take the shot at Joe? It seems like, you know, a majority of people, at least, of the fan base, thinks that Joe is a layup if he gets to the final three, and you're like sitting at home like, why aren't you taking a shot out? I understand in that situation, Mitch has no blood on his hands, but definitely interesting. And at the reward, Eva thinks that tonight is as simple. Everyone's voting for Mitch. She'll play her idol. Obviously, it's her last chance to as well, so that door is open. And this is what I talked about in my preview as well. The most entertaining decision here at Final Five is if someone other than Joe or Eva win at the Final Five, because then that forces hey, if someone wants to go after them, they can, because Eva then only has the one idol. Does she play it, save herself, or does she save Joe? And, how do they do that? You're basically, if they want to get one of them out, they're guaranteed to. They want to. Do they want to, though? Camilla says that Mitch and Kyle are a threat because of them possibly splitting votes at the final tribal council. Camilla didn't think it would be this hard for her to separate logic from her heart, but her goal is to get her and or Kyle to the final three. And Camilla ends up telling Mitch that she thinks if she sits next to him at the end that he will win. And everyone kind of tells Mitch the same thing, and that he's too likable to continue on in this game and not take him out here at 5. And he seems to have accepted that it's him tonight. And at Tribal Council, Kyle says today was a little more direct, and the name was Mitch that everyone was throwing out there. Mitch says it was a heartbreaking feeling, but, felt that he was in a good spot in this game. But he gets it. It's a game for $1 million. And Eva plays her idol. Mitch throws his vote on Kyle, actually, but Mitch goes home at the 5. We head to the Final Four battle, and to battle of the duos, Camilla and Kyle, and Eva and Joe. Back at camp, they celebrate making the Final Four, but Camilla and Kyle, more of an undercover duo, and Joe and Eva, a very public duo. And Eva knows that if she's winning, she's taking Joe. Camilla tells Kyle that she thinks if they sit next to each other, at the end, they'll split votes, which is something that we mentioned last week in the recap of last week's episode and in the preview for this finale. And says that if she wins, that he'll go to fire. He says that he's been thinking the same thing. So Kyle wants to go with Joe and Eva. Joe says that he's picking Eva as well. So he wants to avoid making fire, because what if it's a bad day and you just lose off fire? So we head to the final immunity challenge, and some motion is here. Absolute Survivor Classic, guaranteed spot in the final 3 on the line. Eva drops out first, Camilla drops, and then Joe drops. Kyle wins the final immunity challenge of the season. Kyle tells Joe back at camp that he's going to take him, and also doesn't want to give Joe any more momentum and give him the opportunity to win fire to get into that final 3. Smart thinking on that part. From the outside, you're like, kind of how, the season has been going. With Joe, it's like, whoa, are you just handing him $1 million? Is this, a throwback, a handful of seasons ago with Wu taking Tony to the finals? Is that's what's happening here? I don't know. As I said, I think that this was going to be very open at the 4 at this point. I think anyone can win, but, that's kind of from what a lot of people thought going into this episode, definitely a thought on a lot of people's mind, for sure. Kyle tells Eva that, she's going to go to fire, but that he wants her to win. And because he is so scared to go up against Camilla, because they have played the exact same game, basically they've made all these moves together throughout the games, and their arguing points would be towards or for each other, should I say, because they have made a lot of the same moves or have made those moves together. Camilla and Eva are both grinding away, trying to make fire. Eva is struggling. Kyle is struggling because he knows that he's played a part in this. Obviously, choosing, Joe to go to the final 3 with him, and, having Eva make fire, has, caused her to, have to go through this and prepare for the fire making challenge, and, caused her to be struggling at this point. But Kyle says that he's not afraid to step in and take out Camilla, because obviously it's clear at this point that he sees Camilla as his biggest threat at this point in the game. Joe goes to check on Eva and tells her, let me do it. And she's insistent of doing it herself. So Joe helps her out to get her ready. She ends up making fire and is ready to go into the fire making challenge tonight at Tribal Council. The new Camilla, with a positive attitude, took a step back, figured out what she was doing wrong in preparing for the fire making challenge, and she figured it out. She got a spark, she got a fire, and refocused in. Old Camilla can't come to the phone right now, and she is not coming to this Final Four Tribal Council as well. We get to tribal council throughout the whole initial conversation, before we head into the fire making. Eva is kind of eyeing the fire making, and Kyle says that, he's bringing Joe, which definitely has some interesting looks from the jury. Eva, a little thrown off because she sees that there's no coconuts, which she was practicing with back at camp. But they offer her some encouragement, and the fire making challenge is on. It's an up and down fire making challenge. Camilla could not get anything going, though. Eva got a big flame at first, went down, but she kept fighting to earn herself a spot in the final 3, as Eva wins the fire making challenge at 4, so that means Camilla goes out at the 4 here. And even during the challenge, it wasn't just Joe and Kyle, it was Camilla, encouraging Eva when she was, struggling. She got out to this big lead, had a big flame, was close to the rope, if not touching the rope. Then it went down, and you could see her starting to struggle, and she, had that encouragement as well, and she still picked herself up and was able to continue to go, refocus in, and got that flame back up and won the fire making challenge. So that was really awesome to see, and this has definitely been a different season, full of relationships and mutual respect for everyone. And it even shows out here in the fire making challenge for a shot to go to the final 3, to give yourself a shot at competing to win $1 million, to convince people that you deserve to win the $1 million prize and the title of Sole Survivor, that people are still encouraging you, and at that, your own competitor who you're going up against. So that was really interesting, and really something that we've seen throughout this whole season of Survivor, season 48. And we are here at the final day of Survivor season 48, day 26. And truthfully, don't know what the jury is going to do. I said before that I thought this was going to be a very bitter jury. I'm not sure, though. Shaheen says that Kyle probably played the most strategic game out here. Eva was the heart of the season and really got to the end off of trust and was very courageous, like Mary says. Eva tells Joe and Kyle that she's getting her PhD. Kyle reveals that he's a lawyer, and Joe's looking around like, what's going on? I got a doctor here, I got a lawyer, and he's like, I'm just a fire captain, which is obviously an incredible job in and of itself, and an incredibly courageous job as well for Joe. But really funny moment there on the final day of Survivor. Joe is an incredible person, incredible at challenges. However, David believes that Joe broke a lot of promises out here, so I'm curious to see how that conversation goes at Tribal Council, at the final Tribal, should I say. And truthfully, going into this, I truthfully have no idea who is going to win. I think they all have really good arguments. I think they all have a shot at this, and we get to the final Tribal Council, and it is on. Chrissy is the first to call out to Joe and Eva, like, I don't really get this whole, like, I forget her exact words, but basically call out, like, only one of you can win, like, you have to turn on each other. And Eva says, we're battling it out respectfully, and Joe's like, we're going to battle, and if I convince you that I did a better job in this game, then I could win. Or if Eva does, then she could win. That's just how it's, that's just how it's going to go. Eva pulls out her advantage of safety without power that she didn't have to use and explain how she got it. Kyle reveals that he's a lawyer as well, and Eva reveals that she's a PhD student as well to the jury. Joe's like, I'm still a fireman, which, like I said, is an incredible and courageous profession that Joe has as a fireman. Then Shaheen and Camilla both lay up Kyle for what happened at the final 6, and Kyle knocks it out of the park. How they lay it up, how Kyle and Camilla both came up with this plan that Shaheen, which he had mentioned that he wanted to go after Joe or Eva, and that he had an idol, and that was the lie that they did to get him out, because as we've kind of seen throughout the season, that Joe was the muscle of the season, Eva was the heart, and Shaheen was the brains. And as Kyle said, he had to take the brain out there at 6 and completely knocked the argument and explanation of the move out of the park. And then he also does a good job of revealing that him and Camilla have had this secret relationship throughout the game and have been working together, all the way back, and kind of even in just passing, as we got more after the game, even more information of it. It would be like, 10 words, like 1 or 2 minutes, like not even every day, just a quick catch up, like, hey, this is what's going on, but, here's the information, and then keep it moving, because they didn't want people to be suspicious of them. And I definitely think that impressed the jury and everyone, because it really, it really didn't seem like that. Like, we saw it a lot as, as viewers, but out there, it definitely seemed like that no one really saw how close they were on the beach. So really keeping that till the end, was impressive as well. And I really did love to see too on the jury that Camilla's like, as Eva's kind of explaining, her portion, and as she's having that back and forth and other jury members are talking, we kept going back and forth between Camilla and Kyle, and Camilla's like, I got you. Like, and she laid it out for him. And I feel like in Shaheen's face and how he did it, it seemed like he laid it up for Camilla. She threw the alley-oop and Kyle just dunked it and absolutely hit it out of the park. David gets off the frown and gives a knock-knock joke, like, knock, knock, who's there? Not me. And then cracks a joke, starts laughing, gets rid of that frown and that scary look that he had on the jury for the whole time since he's got voted out. But all three have good final words to the jury as well. And we get to the vote. Joe gets 1 vote, Eva gets 2 votes, and Kyle gets 5 votes to win Survivor Season 48. Then at the after reunion portion, Star says that if Camilla was in the final 3, that she would win the whole thing. And it, heard some, murmurs as well that it seemed like that was kind of also, the consensus from everyone. Obviously, we don't know. They didn't do a poll of raising hands, but it definitely seems like, and that's kind of what we were leaning towards was, Kyle or Camilla, whoever got there was going to win. And it seems like they saw that as well. Like, both of them couldn't go together because they were going to split votes. And if they were both there with a Joe or Eva, that it could have been, of an 8-person jury, it could have been as close as a 3-3-2 or a, or a 4-3-1. Like, it could have been very, very close and even closer than it was with the 5-2-1. But then also as well that I believe it was Jeff mentioned that, is like Kyle winning, kind of is for a win for her as well. Because as we saw throughout the season and as we mentioned here, they did play a very similar game and they played it together. And they were both really, we want one of us in the final 3 and one of us to win $1 million. And it is curious when you take a step back and look at this whole season as, that was Kyle and Camilla's goal as well, is to get one of them to the final 3 and one of them to win $1 million. And that happened. Joe and Eva, they both wanted to get to the end and get to the final 3, but they wanted to both get there together. And that's kind of the problem that you see with not, there's nothing wrong with playing a loyal game. I know a lot of people were down on this season because of that, felt that it was boring or, whatnot. I thought it was still, at times I can see, how people feel like that. But I do think that there was still, moments where that was, good Survivor and, maybe not the entertaining of pulling out all these advantages, idols, or blindsides, whatever. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game or bad strategy. But when you do go to the end with people who you've been in a majority alliance with, who are strong as well. Like if you go to the end, like, no offense to Boston Rob, season that he went to the final 3 with in Redemption Island, but he went to the final 3 with 2 other individuals who, really like them as people and Survivor players, but they weren't loud in making moves and other stuff throughout the game. And that's just one that comes off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other ones if we go through and look through each season as well. Whereas Kyle, Joe, and Eva, they all had big moments in this game. But Joe and Eva were more connected at the hip publicly throughout this season. So a lot of their moves were more aligned, with each other throughout the game. And Kyle didn't go to the end with his, partner in this game in Camilla that he had, partner in crime that he had done all of these moves with throughout the season. So I definitely think that was the key to him winning there, along with obviously the other moves too. But if he's there with Camilla, I don't know how this, and breaks. I think Camilla wins. As I said, I picked her going into this finale, and it seems like the jury was on that boat as well. But I definitely think, and that wasn't the game they were going to play, but I definitely think that it did hurt that Joe and Eva, who had been so close the whole game and played the similar game, were there together in the final 3. And I definitely think that hampered their chances against Kyle, who wasn't there with his number 1 throughout this game. But we get the Survivor Season 49 preview coming this fall as well. Next Wednesday, as I mentioned earlier in this preview, we get the Survivor Season 50 cast reveal. So overall thoughts on Season 48 of Survivor. I thought it was a solid season. I wouldn't rank it, a top, 3 or 4 Survivor, new era season since Season 40. But I definitely thought that there were some good moments of this season. I really liked the cast. I really like Camilla. I really like Kyle. Some other players as well throughout this season that I would love to see play again. And really curious. I know we're going to have Survivor Season 50 with returning players as well. But I would really like, maybe 50, 52, 54 or 55, something like that. Would love a second chance season and see, some people that we haven't, seen in a while that, probably might not make it on 50, but that could get a second chance. And, would love to see that for maybe 55 or something like that down the line. But overall, as I said, I think I've mentioned it throughout this season as well. I think my favorite part of this season was the Camilla and Kyle alliance, secret alliance, if you will, throughout the season. That was definitely my favorite part of this season, and thought that was really fun to see develop throughout the season, and thought that was really fun and cool how it was revealed at Final Tribal, as well, peeling back the layers of everything. I love the Eva and Joe relationship as well. I do love that aspect, and I think I see why Jeff, was hyping up this season, not just for promo, but because this was a different Survivor season, as we said, of, loyalty and, not really backstabbing too much. There was some, but not from that majority alliance for the most part in terms of Joe and Eva. That was, kind of the main focal point of a lot of this season. But Kyle is an incredible winner, played the middle, as he said, very well throughout this game. I definitely think that is, kind of the best strategy to be adaptable in the middle of this game, kind of having all sides, of the thing open. And he even mentioned that at 5, I feel like all of my options are open to go to the final 3. And that's what you need to do. Get to the final 3, be able to defend your game for a chance to win $1 million. But that'll do it for this season of Survivor. Survivor Season 48. If you've watched all the recaps this season, thank you. If you watched a couple, thank you. If you've only watched this one, thank you for tuning in and watching this recap as well. As I said, we'll be back over the next week or so. I'm going to rank all the new era Survivor seasons as well here in the next week or so. And then as well as next Wednesday, we have the cast reveal for Survivor Season 50. And then in the fall, we will be back to preview Survivor Season 49 before we jump into the season. And then we'll be back with recaps of every single episode of Survivor Season 49. So anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.